The Boston Red Sox have had a confirmed meeting with Jordan Montgomery. Does that mean he might come to Boston? Find out on today's Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and the current host of the Boston Balling podcast. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed for free. And since it's free, that's honestly a plus. So might as well start your day off the right way with the Locked On Red Sox podcast, especially as we are getting closer and closer to opening day. Only a few more weeks here of the Red Sox playing spring training games before opening day is here. It is right around the corner. So lots to dive into today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the show. And the Red Sox have actually had a pretty decent start to spring training so far. And I have a great guest with me on today's show who can definitely help provide a little bit of insight about what that's exactly look like for Boston. Mac Cerullo, Red Sox reporter for the Boston Herald. How are you doing today?
Hey, Gabby, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. I'm sure it must be nice to be down there. I know over the weekend I was watching the Red Sox play and the weather just looked absolutely gorgeous down there.
It's it's basically perfect. It's been low 70s, sunny, cool. Couldn't ask for better Florida weather. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes me want to not be in New England right now. And it's actually, relatively warm this week considering it's like 50s this week. So that's showing that it's nearing the spring here. But I'd love to be down in Florida right now. So I'm glad you're enjoying it down there and enjoying the nice weather.
Yeah, no complaints.
Yeah, right. Well, I appreciate you hopping on here with me. I definitely want to dive a little bit into spring training and what that's looked like so far for the Red Sox in these first few games that they've had. But I do want to start off with just some relatively big news that has kind of been lingering over the last couple of days about Alex Cora having confirmed that he did have a Zoom meeting with Jordan Montgomery. And this whole offseason for the Red Sox has been definitely a little bit underwhelming relative to, I think, what expectations were prior to the offseason starting. And so I think a move like signing Jordan Montgomery would get Red Sox fans a little bit more excited for the overall outlook of this upcoming season. What are your thoughts on the Red Sox potentially signing Montgomery? Do you think he's somebody that the Red Sox could legitimately, seriously pursue in these next few weeks?
Yeah, definitely. So, it's funny when we asked Alex about it was Buster Olney's report that they had a Zoom call recently. We were, you never know what they're going to say, but he was surprisingly candid. Like, yeah, like we talked. So I think he was keen to clear up that it wasn't like something that happened like today or, recent, like this week. They spoke 2 weeks ago. It was while he was in Miami to take part in the University of Miami alumni game. So this would have been just before spring training like actually started. So kind of recently, but not like just like the other day, right? Yeah. He also was keen to be like, yeah, we've had tons of meetings like this. So it's, and he was, emphasizing like, listen, like we've been trying to add, and we are still trying to add, position players, pitchers, it hasn't been for lack of trying is what he was trying to say, and I mean, on some level, I'm sure he probably just wants to like, let everybody know that, the team isn't just sitting on their hands. If that's true, that they really are actually trying, and people have just been dumping on them all off season for, quote unquote, not trying, I can see from his perspective, he might want to push back on that a bit. Your question was like, do we think that this is something that could happen? Absolutely. At this point, I mean, he's still out there. I think at this point, it's safe to say was hoping to get a bigger deal than it was maybe ever responsible for someone to give him. Jordan Montgomery is like a very good pitcher, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's like an elite pitcher. So if he ends up maybe instead of getting the 7 years and, God knows how much he might have wanted, if he ends up more in the 5 years and like, 100 to 115 million range, I think that's something the Red Sox could do. Whether or not it happens remains to be seen, but there certainly seems like there's a lot of smoke. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if we wake up later this week and something happens.
Yeah, so you don't think the Red Sox are necessarily out on him? Because I think the general mindset, at least from what I've seen on Twitter, seems to be that people think that the Red Sox wouldn't be willing to commit to somebody like that. But you think that, based on how this offseason's gone for him and the fact that he hasn't signed anywhere yet, that if he kind of aligns with the price range that the Red Sox are aiming for, that they would pull the trigger on that.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like I've seen, I've been following the discourse on social media. Frankly, a lot of people are understandably down on the Red Sox, but it's something. If the pendulum, I think, maybe has swung a little bit too far. Look, I think the Red Sox have not helped themselves at all as far as public relations go and the way they've handled the things. But that being said, I also don't see why fans would necessarily be so sure they're out. Like, let's look around the game. Nobody's really actually spent much money this offseason besides the Dodgers, right?
Yeah.
You could actually make the case the Kansas City Royals have been maybe the second most aggressive team in baseball. The Rangers, I think they could have signed Montgomery at any point over the offseason. I think he would have, frankly, there's good reason to believe he'd really want to go back there. Well, why hasn't he? Well, they have a big problem with their TV money. A lot of teams have that same problem. We haven't seen the Yankees spend like sailors, really. They traded for Juan Soto, but like, the Cubs only just recently finally came to terms with Cody Bellinger, and that kind of seemed like a no-brainer for a while. So look, it's not just the Red Sox. Like, it's just kind of just the way things have played out this offseason. I'm not telling you Jordan Montgomery is going to sign, but if you're convinced that that the Red Sox wouldn't go out and sign him, I don't really feel like that's true.
Yeah, it's definitely good to hear that, because obviously, you've had these conversations with Cora and other people around the Red Sox organization, and there definitely is that mentality of, does this Red Sox front office even care? Are they trying to make the moves necessary to make this a competitive team again? And, bringing in Breslow was a pretty big move for the Red Sox. That's a pretty big front office change on their part. And I truly felt like them making that change is sending a message that they did want to change that mentality of how the last few seasons have gone for them, and kind of put somebody in position that can help get them back to where they want to be within their division, but also just among the league in general.
Yeah, so there's two angles to this. One is, the whole notion about the commitment to winning. I think the front office, I don't think anybody should have any concern about how they feel about things. The problem is John Henry, his apparent unwillingness to spend at a level that should, in any way or shape or form should be considered appropriate. The first luxury tax threshold is $237 million, and right now they are only about 206. So there's a ton of room under the luxury tax. They could sign a bunch of people and they'd be just fine. Why aren't they spending to a higher level? I guess truthfully, if John Henry has basically just concluded this team isn't good enough to win the World Series, so why essentially waste money when I can instead save the money and go big next year or the year after? I mean, to be honest, like that's not an unreasonable conclusion to reach. It's just also kind of a tough pill to swallow. But at the same time, Jordan Montgomery or a pitcher like him isn't just going to help you this year. If he signs a 5-year deal, that guy could help you next year, 2 years down the road. Look at John Lackey. It took him a while, but that deal ultimately paid off in year 4 eventually. But, so anyway, as far as the front office goes, something that I think fans also need to appreciate is as disappointing as it's been in terms of player acquisitions, it's been a huge offseason in terms of front office acquisitions. Like Breslow is a big change. He's came highly regarded. The results he got overhauling the Cubs pitching program, hard to dispute. Andrew Bailey was the consensus best pitching coach available. They got him. They brought in Kyle Boddy from Driveline. Justin Willard has, the director of pitching. They're already getting pretty impressive results. The metrics, behind the scenes are all very positive this spring. And nobody's really had a bad outing yet, like in any of the games so far, except for a couple of minor leaguers. But it's, I think fans should allow themselves the possibility that things could improve in ways that maybe don't seem as obvious, as simply adding a big starting pitcher, which again, don't rule that out either.
Yeah, I mean, Montgomery, I do agree with you. He's not like a superstar pitcher. I don't really see him as an ace caliber pitcher either, but he's definitely somebody that would strengthen the Red Sox pitching staff as a whole. And I really like just that veteran experience that he would come with and his ability to perform in the postseason. I think that's huge for, a Red Sox pitching staff that's kind of trying to find their way. And especially with these starters like Brian Bayo, Cutter Crawford, trying to figure out, their identity and how they're going to pan out as major league pitchers too. But I'm excited to see Andrew Bailey work with them. And I think it's, regardless of the fact that Montgomery isn't an ace, he's still a very talented pitcher. And, I don't think it's really difficult to say that he would make the rotation better.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what he does is he raises the floor. Think about last year's team. Why did they lose? It wasn't really because of their offense. They hit just fine. Their bullpen, pretty good. What happened was you have a starting rotation that simply cannot pitch deep into games. And so if every single time out you have guys going 4 innings, 5 innings, then you have to use more relievers. And then suddenly those relievers are not available the next day. And, you kind of have a cascading effect where eventually you just get to the end of the week and you're just like, crap, we're out of pitchers. Kyle Barraclough, have fun. And next thing you know, he gives up 10 runs and the season's over, basically. That's, then obviously the
disaster.
The defense plays into it too. But Montgomery and frankly, these guys who are coming back, Lucas Giolito will be great for this too. They need to raise the floor. They need at least 4 guys who can go 150 innings, ideally 180, but let's not get carried away here. And there's reason to believe that maybe isn't an unreasonable ask, right? Cutter Crawford, he only joined the rotation in early June. He ended up with almost 130 innings, and he made every 5th start, so he proved that he can post. Now he needs to, instead of going 5 innings, he needs to go 6 innings. So that's one. Lucas Giolito, you can reasonably imagine that he'll actually make most, if not all, of his starts, which is not something Chris Sale could really do with any sense. You couldn't rely on him to do that. So that's 2. And then Bayo he did it last year. He topped 150 innings, and he did the year before that in the minors too. So, that's 3 guys. So you get Montgomery in there. Now you've got 4, and the 5th spot, I think they got enough guys that they can make it work. Whitlock, Houck, Pivetta. I completely forgot about Nick Pivetta. He, despite his time in the bullpen last year, he almost got to 150 innings himself, and he struck out everybody. So he's going to be a big factor too. And I think at the end of the day, getting Montgomery is really the last piece to shore up that part of the puzzle. And if they just get guys who can just go deep in the games, it'll alleviate more issues than most people even can appreciate.
100%. Yeah, Cora definitely took a lot of heat last year for some of the bullpen decision making, but the problem was because so many of these guys were being overworked. So I kept, trying to say guys are being put into position that you wouldn't ideally want in that position, but it's because somebody else isn't available because they've been so overused lately. So hopefully we can avoid more of that issue this year because it just became so evident towards the end of the season that a lot of those bullpen arms were very fatigued.
Yeah, exactly. Bullpen's just fine. They got a lot of really live arms down here. We got to see what happens with Whitlock, Hauk, Winkowski. Two of those guys are going to be in the bullpen, possibly even all three. We're going to kind of wait and see how that pans out. And then there's a lot of guys with promising track records who are fighting for the last couple spots. And presumably whoever doesn't make the team is going to be in AAA and will be available to help. So I think fans should be encouraged by at least what we're seeing in terms of that kind of the upper minors, bullpen, fringe arms. I think they have a lot to work with, but it won't matter unless they have the starting rotation to kind of, support the whole thing, or else it's all going to come down like a house of cards.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned some of these guys who could be key pieces in 2024, maybe even beyond that. And coming up, I definitely want to hear some thoughts about some of these players, how they've looked so far in spring training, who could be a big factor in the Red Sox future. If you love sports betting, I promise you won't be disappointed with FanDuel. Even if you're just starting to get into it, FanDuel is absolutely the place for you. My fiance got into it very recently, and he just is so into it now, constantly creating different bets on different sports, too. You can kind of create different bets for the day, utilizing different storylines from different sporting events. And it's also very forgiving. You can win a lot of money, and you can actually, if you sign up, you can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. It's fantastic. It's so funny watching my fiance do it, and he's having so much success. So you can be that way as well. Also, you can check out Locked On Sports today on YouTube or Amazon Fire TV, as we have launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. So all of the Locked On hosts will give you constant updates 24/7 on what's going on in sports, and you can feel like you're caught up with the latest. So check that out today on either YouTube or Amazon Fire TV. Just search Locked On Sports today. So I'm sitting here with Mac Cerullo of the Boston Herald, and we've been talking a lot about Jordan Montgomery, whether the Red Sox might sign him. I'm definitely not closing the door on that option until I see something that's confirmed that he is signed somewhere, and hopefully it says that it's with the Boston Red Sox, because that would totally help enhance this pitching staff and create a better overall mood among the fan base heading into opening day. But one thing that we can be excited about so far is that the Red Sox have had a pretty decent start to spring training so far. Lots of young talent getting in there, guys who we're wondering could be a big piece of the Red Sox future, like Kyle Teal, Roman Anthony, guys who are, kind of lurking, waiting for their opportunity to come up. And so, Mac, one question I had for you is, what have you noticed so far in spring training about, the Red Sox future? Some of the players who won't get their opportunity necessarily in 2024, but we could be excited about past that.
Yeah, well, so, it's funny, on the first Grapefruit League game on Saturday, they had Roman Anthony in the starting lineup, I believe Jordan too, and Kyle Teal came in off the bench, which I thought was interesting and kind of, encouraging to see. They looked great. Roman and Blaze especially. Kyle, I think, went 0 for 2, but still, come on, it's the first game.
You remember one.
He'll get a pass. Roman drew 2 full counts and drew walks on both of them. Really looked at home out there. Blaze was pretty impressive that day too. it was just encouraging to see them getting this kind of a look, especially on day one. And now, to be fair, there's the reason why Roman was there is because Jaron Duran was not ready to play, and Connor Wong wasn't available to play that day, and Tristan Casas is out with the flu. So all three of those spots needed, they just needed somebody to fill the role. So fans shouldn't really be drawing too many conclusions by their playing that day. But no, they looked great. I think, afterwards, Alex Cora was really complimentary of all of them. And, kind of, more relevantly, Cedar Rafaela has a real shot. That's Alex Cora has basically told us that he is whether or not he makes the team is kind of like the big decision they have to make this season, the spring. If he makes the team and becomes the starting center fielder, that's going to change a lot. It's going to affect how Duran, how Tyler O'Neill, how Wilyer Abreu, how each of those guys are used. Masataka Yoshida too, and maybe to a lesser extent, but it's gonna affect a lot of stuff. If he's not on the team, if he starts the season in AAA, then the logical move would probably be O'Neill in left, Duran in center, Abreu in right. But Abreu kind of has to earn that job too, right? He's a rookie as well. He's also trying to establish himself. Tom Werner, it's funny, during winter weekend, I believe it was, he kind of just made a quip of how he can't wait for Wilyer to have 400 at bats, which kind of stood out to me immediately. I was like, oh, okay. so that was the thing. I think fans will want to watch Rafaela and Abreu closely. They're going to play a lot. They played today. They're going to play again tomorrow. They're probably going to play most, if not all, the road games. So, they're for better or worse, they're going to be a big part of this team. So we need to, kind of see how they progress and how Alex Cora uses them. And if we start to see them playing home games more regularly, that should be a big, here they come. If they're breaking into the starting lineup with the regulars, that'll really tell us a lot. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and this outfield situation is really interesting right now. Multiple guys, like you just mentioned, who have a chance to be a key part of that starting outfield. And I'm interested in seeing how Tyler O'Neill performs. He definitely has made a couple standout plays defensively in the first couple games of spring training that he's been in. And that's really good. I mean, when the Red Sox traded for him, we knew he was coming with top-tier defense. It's just a matter of, for him, can he stay healthy? And obviously his bat also has to be able to step up there too. But I'm actually pretty excited about that addition. I think he'll be, at least defensively, a good, strong, solid piece for Boston. But the question, really now is, what happens with Yoshida? Do you think they end up just kind of using him primarily more as a DH if they see some of these other guys like Abreu, like Rafaela, like Duran, like O'Neill being kind of better fits to be everyday outfielders?
Yeah, that's a pretty safe bet. I mean, Alex basically told us right at the start of camp that Massa would get the majority of the DH at bats. And you know what? That makes sense, because let's think about it. Who would you rather have playing left field in Boston? Would you rather have Yoshida, who, according to many advanced metrics, was one of the worst defensive left fielders in baseball last year? Or would you rather have the guy who's a 2-time Gold Glove winner? And
definitely not Yoshida.
That doesn't seem like a hard decision to make. Yoshida has been a pretty strong first season in the majors. There's no reason to expect he can't be even better this year. And hey, Tyler O'Neill, when he's been healthy, he has proven he can perform at an elite level. Now, that was one season, so that's kind of a big if, but he is healthy right now. And at the very least, we know what he's capable of on the defensive side. I think I think that could prove to be an under the radar addition. As certainly he, at the very least, he will fill the void left by Verdugo, and frankly, probably should be an upgrade. But of course, yes, whether or not he can stay healthy is the wild card, because if he's out, then that's one thing you could say with Verdugo is he did usually play for the most part. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I definitely have liked some of the return that Breslow's gotten here on some of these trades. And, you even mentioned him earlier, and Chris Sale, how he just couldn't get the innings in, wasn't playing a lot of the time. Unfortunately, just couldn't stay healthy there. So I actually agreed with the move to, trade him. I just think that, it was time for the Red Sox to move on, and he might have a bounce back season in Atlanta. And I'm obviously hoping for the best for him. I appreciate Chris Sale when he was prime Chris Sale and helped the Red Sox win a World Series. But the return in that trade is definitely intriguing in Vaughn Grissom. I think he's a player who can contribute, and make an immediate impact in Boston. So what are your thoughts on him?
That's so fascinating. Like, when this offseason began, a lot of us were kind of like, well, the middle infield market is pretty terrible. So Whit Merrifield was kind of like the most logical addition. A lot of people, myself included, were like, well, it's kind of, maybe the Red Sox will sign him. And when they traded Chris Sale for Vaughn Grissom, I was like, that's fascinating. Grissom was a standout prospect, a standout performer in the minor leagues, and has acquitted himself nicely in the majors when he's got the opportunity. The problem was he was never going to get an opportunity in Atlanta, where they have 4 all-stars at each of the infield positions, and before that they had Dansby Swanson, another all-star at shortstop. So Grissom was never going to get a real shot there. He's only 23, and he's going to have his chance now. Like, he will be the starting second baseman. I'm kind of bummed that I haven't gotten to see him much yet, because I've been down here this week, and he's not playing in games yet because he has like a tweaked hamstring. Apparently it happened at the Trevor Story camp. So, it's nothing serious. He'll probably, he did a live batting practice earlier today at JetBlue Park. So looks fine, moving fine. He'll probably make his debut in a game by the weekend, or, by early next week. And he's super talented. I'm fascinated to see like what he becomes in Boston, because think about it, like, second base has been a black hole in Boston the last couple of years. If this guy comes in and starts batting 280 and he hits like 15 home runs, you're in business. That guy could be like your 7th or 8th hitter, and if he's producing like that, that's going to be huge for this team.
Yeah, I definitely think that's not really being talked about enough either. How, they didn't have a defined second baseman for a while. Like you said, they were just kind of rotating people through that position, and people were alternating playing that. So if he could come in and be that defined second baseman and actually produce, I think this is a really good return for the Red Sox for Chris Sale. And, another guy you just mentioned is Trevor Story. And he came back last year after spending a lot of the season on the IL and going through surgery and all that. And defensively, he vastly improved the Red Sox infield, because that was pretty scary, the Red Sox defensive challenges in the infield last year. And we knew that, he would come back and defensively help, because he just has a proven track record of being a very good defender. But the concern for him was at the plate last year. And obviously, he's gotten some reps so far already in spring training. So how do you feel about kind of, based on what you've seen so far, his season upcoming? Do you think that we should be concerned about his, plate appearances again this year?
No. I think
yes, that's what I wanted to hear.
Trevor Story has had such a strange 2 years, and the results are what they are. So look, he's been objectively disappointing so far. Let's not forget, when he signed with Boston, it was coming right out of the lockout. It was late March. It was like a week and a half before opening day. So that week he had a baby. He had to move across the country, and I think he also got the flu. So it was a crazy week. Opening day comes, and predictably, he's terrible, because he has had no spring training and probably no sleep in weeks. So it takes him 6 weeks to get his rhythm, which is about how long it usually takes any ball player to get their rhythm, except usually those 6 weeks take place in spring training, which he basically had none. And then from mid-May until July, he was great, and the team won. And it was exactly kind of what you hoped you'd see from him. Then he got hit in the wrist with a pitch. He broke his wrist, and kind of, the whole season kind of was, went down the drain from there. And then the elbow thing happened, and he, last year you have a lost season. So I think this year he finally has a normal full spring training. He is healthy, for all the concerns about the elbow, like the surgery, it's should be good now. Like that's in the past. I don't think there's any reason not to expect that he can't be a very, very good offensive contributor. I don't know if he'll be as good as he was in Colorado, but he'll certainly be good enough to make a real impact on this team. And defensively, forget about it. I think he'll be a contender for a Gold Glove, and he'll be good enough to really pick up the slack for both Grissom and Devers and help both of them defensively as well. I can't possibly overstate how important Trevor Story is to this team. And I think he's got a big year coming, hopefully.
That's what I'm hoping. That could be a huge difference maker for this Red Sox team if he has a big season at the plate, because that's what people have been hoping for sure. And, last year he definitely deserves a pass for that. Coming into the season as late as he did, after just coming off of having surgery and not being fully healthy, I'm definitely willing to give him a pass on that. And like you said, now he is getting all the reps that he can in spring training, and he's fully healthy, and hopefully he comes back and is ready to, have a big season, because that's definitely in itself an upgrade for this Red Sox team from last year if he's able to be a big contributor at the plate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, obviously, lots of factors play into how the Red Sox are going to perform during the 2024 season. But coming up, I'm going to have Mac give a prediction about the Red Sox record for 2024 and what that might look like. Gametime is great if you're ever looking to score last-minute tickets, and I'll be the first to admit that I am not great at planning in advance, and I've used Gametime multiple times. I used it a few weeks ago to get tickets to a UConn basketball game. Great game, by the way. Any Big East basketball is awesome. Highly recommend, if you have not been part of that environment, to check out a game. And also use it to get concert tickets for a concert in Boston that my friends and I wanted to go to. And it gives you the best prices, too. So it'll give you less expensive tickets than other ticketing sites, and you can actually see where your seats are before you buy. So it's a great way to be ensured that you're sitting in seats you're comfortable in and get the most reasonable prices. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. I've had nothing but good experiences on it. And if you're trying to secure those last minute tickets, it is the place for you. And Locked On Sports Today is also the place for you to get caught up in everything going on in sports on our 24/7 streaming channel. It's available on Amazon Fire TV as well as YouTube. So if you need to get caught up in everything going on in sports, you can do that today by just following Locked On Sports Today on either YouTube or Amazon Fire TV. We as a network absolutely have you covered. Well, Mac, we talked about a lot of different things that could go into the Red Sox 2024 season. Lots of players who could make an impact, and other players they potentially could acquire still in the next few weeks here that could make an impact. But given everything, we've talked about what you've seen so far in spring training, say they don't make any more moves, they don't sign Montgomery, they don't do anything else in terms of roster changes before opening day, what would you say you would be anticipating in terms of the Red Sox final record at the end of the regular season in 2024? Like, what would your expectations be for that?
So if they don't make any additional changes, I feel like this is about a 500 team.
Yep.
Because, well, frankly, they have been a slightly under 500 team the last 2 years. And to this point, they haven't really made any significant additions. So kind of hard to really predict a massive improvement just based on that, right? I do think this team has the potential to be better. I think a lot of players who are already on the team have a chance to improve. Devers, I think, could be better than he was last year. And he was pretty good last year. Let's give him credit for that. Story will be much better than he was last year. If Story's good offensively, that'll hopefully kind of offset losing Justin Turner. Wilyer Abreu, Jaron Duran, Tyler O'Neill could all be, plus contributors in the outfield. The whole group could be much better defensively, which could really, really just have a huge impact on, a lot of things. And then, with the pitching, it's just so important that they pitch deep in the games, and whoever ends up in the rotation, if it ends up being Crawford and we'll say Whitlock or Houck, any combination of those guys, if they're the 4 and 5 starters and they're still posting every day, if they're staying healthy, that's a huge wild card. The team will be better. Like, I don't think this team has a particularly high ceiling though, and frankly, the division they're in is going to just be a real challenge. Baltimore is going to be a wagon. Tampa Bay is weird because all logic suggests they really shouldn't be that good, and they're going to be without Wander Franco. So that's a big deal. And their starting rotation is decimated by injury. I don't even know who they're going to have starting because half of their guys are still out with Tommy John surgery. But they're the Rays. They're going to somehow they're going to
find a way every year. It's crazy.
The Yankees last year was pretty rough for them, but you just traded for Juan Soto. I think they're gonna be just fine. And the Blue Jays, I am very worried for the Blue Jays in the long run. I think their expiration date is fast approaching, but I don't think it's here yet. I still think they're gonna have another good season. They should be a playoff contender. I think that's the team I would look for the Red Sox to surpass first down the road. If we're talking when the Red Sox are ready to make the leap, I think the Blue Jays have a rough future ahead of them if they can't start developing some more pitchers and get their farm system in order. But that's not a problem yet. They still got a lot of talent, and that talent is it's getting older, but not old yet. So look, I don't know. I don't think the Red Sox are as bad as a lot of people think they are, but I don't think they're all that good either, in the grand scheme of things. So 81 and 81. And if they sign Jordan Montgomery, I'm willing to maybe bump that up to 85 or 86. So maybe good enough to make the playoffs. We'll see. But it's kind of hard to say until it happens.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that we have to still kind of wait on and see, especially with the pitching staff. Like you mentioned, I think there's a lot of question marks surrounding, guys stepping up and really performing. But I am excited to see Andrew Bailey work with them. I definitely think that's a little bit of an underrated thing that happened as well this offseason, is he was just so desirable heading into this offseason, and the fact that the Red Sox were able to land him is huge. And I really do like his philosophy of focusing on every pitcher individually. Every guy's different. Their strengths and weaknesses are different, and really honing in on that stuff for each of them. I think he's going to be fantastic for this team. And so for, some of these other pitchers like Crawford, like Bayo, for the standpoint of them developing and growing, I think he's a fantastic choice of somebody who can really help with that development process. And for somebody like Lucas Giolito, obviously, coming off of a couple of rough seasons, but a lot of external factors outside of baseball helped contribute to that. I think Bailey is somebody who could hopefully help get him back on track, because he could definitely be somebody who could be a really good contributor and be looked at as a great acquisition for Boston if he can kind of get back on track to where he was prior to all of this off the field stuff happening.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, his first outing was probably the most encouraging of all. His fastball was up 2-3 miles an hour from where it was last year. I mean, the second half last year was just a mess, for the reasons you just suggested. He changes teams twice. There's a whole bunch of things going on in his life. And the fastball was bad, bad, one of the worst in baseball, bad. And that's, no way to, succeed in the majors when you're a pitcher like with his repertoire. Already you can tell it's huge improvement. And, after his start, he huge praise for Bailey and the whole new pitching infrastructure. He said it's been outstanding. He was effusive in his praise for it. It's very encouraging. It's we're all waiting for help to come from outside. We hope that Montgomery comes, but what could really be what makes the difference is if they get a guy like him from the outside, and then all of a sudden a bunch of people who aren't anything special now just overnight turn into dudes. And we look up in July and we're like, oh my God, the Red Sox staff is just full of monsters. Like, where did that come from? It might take longer than that, but it's just, that's what most of the best organizations have done. That's what Tampa Bay has done. That's what the Dodgers have done. You look up and you're just like what, who are these guys and where did they come from? Ryan Brazier, not exactly very effective with the Red Sox, goes to the Dodgers and turns into like Mariano Rivera. Like, I don't, good for him.
I was like, who is this guy?
By the way, Ryan Brazier, shout out to that guy. He absolutely got the bag this offseason. And less than a year ago, it looked like he was finished. Like, he's going to double his career earnings. He's probably going to, pitch important playoff series. I mean, that's talk about coming in through in the clutch right there. So good for him. The Red Sox need success stories like that. They need to figure out a way to maximize the arms they have. That's not something they were able to do. Well, not something they've ever really been able to do. And if that starts to change, the whole outlook of this group changes. That's truly what will put their ceiling, over the top, right? Like, if you can spend you can throw all the money at the problem you want, but that needs to be there too. So I think the Red Sox deserve credit for really making a concerted effort to fix that problem. And if they would only just spend a little more on the major league payroll on top of that, then maybe it wouldn't take 2 or 3 years. Maybe this season they could be awesome, and next season they could be like a championship contender. We'll have to see. I'm not ruling out the possibility this team could be better than we think, even if my official prediction is still probably more of the same.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I hope they're able to maximize that talent that they have within. That's going to be absolutely huge. And like you said, this pitching staff could make or break what happens with this team this upcoming season, because we know they can hit. They're a very strong hitting team. Can they put it all together, though? That's the question that we're all kind of wondering. But Mac, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Of course. Hey, thanks so much for having me. Love to come back anytime you'll have me.
Oh, definitely. I'll definitely be having you on again soon, and still following along with your tweets as we progress through spring training here and kind of checking in on some of these guys.
Of course. Hopefully we'll see how things go these next couple of days. And Costas will be back in camp tomorrow from what we hear. So that'll be fun. And I'll just kind of wait and see how this thing goes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the season. As always, everybody, go Red Sox. Try to keep the faith. We are so close to opening day, and I will catch you next time.